You find out your father is dead the same way everyone else does. A corrections officer slides a printed news alert under your cell door at 6:47 a.m. No phone call, no convoy of men in black, no dramatic scene where a general stands at the foot of your bed and breaks the news with gravity and ceremony. Just a piece of paper on a concrete floor. The headline reads, Mexican Army kills CJNG leader El Mencho in Jalisco operation. You pick it up, you sit down, you read it 3 times. The man who built the most feared cartel in the Western Hemisphere died in the back of a helicopter somewhere between Tapalpa and Mexico City, bleeding out from gunshot wounds while you, his son, the heir, the name, were sitting in a federal detention facility in the United States wearing an orange jumpsuit, eating breakfast. But he built an empire that moved cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl across 4 continents. He evaded the DEA for 15 years. He had a $15 million bounty on his head. He weaponized drones before most militaries thought to try it. And the last thing he saw before he lost consciousness was probably the interior of a military helicopter ceiling. The empire did not go to you. It couldn't. You were already gone. This is not a success story. This is not a cautionary tale. This is just what happens when the math runs out. You were born into a last name, not a family. Guadalajara. The good part, or at least the part that looked good from the outside, which in Jalisco is not the same thing. The house was large, the cars were new, your mother moved carefully through rooms the way people move carefully around sleeping animals. And you learned, before you could explain why, that certain questions had answers you were not supposed to know yet. Your father's name was already legend before you understood what legends cost. Kids at school treated you the way kids treat a fire. They wanted to be near it, they talked about it constantly, and they made sure never to get too close. By 10, you understood the shape of your life. By 14, you understood its price. By 17, you understood there was no version of your existence that didn't eventually lead to a courtroom or a graveyard. You chose the courtroom, briefly. Then the courtroom chose you. Your father did not teach you the business the way fathers in movies teach their sons the business. No long drives, no fireside wisdom, no hand on the shoulder, and slow nod of approval. Like your father taught you by existing. Every room he walked into became a different room. Every man who worked for him stood differently when he was present. You watched this from the time you were 6 years old, and you absorbed it the way children absorb everything, completely, without processing it, in a way that only makes sense 20 years later when you're trying to understand why you became what you became. The actual lessons came from the men around him. Lesson 1. Your father's name is a weapon. Use it carefully. A weapon used too often becomes expected, and an expected weapon loses its effect. Lesson 2. The organization is not loyal to people. It is loyal to continuity. The moment you stop being the continuation of something, you become a liability. Lesson 3. Never confuse being loved with being safe. Yes, they are 2 different ledgers and they do not always balance. Lesson 4. The one nobody said out loud but everyone understood. If you are arrested, you are on your own. Not because they don't care. Because the organization cannot afford to care. Caring is a vulnerability, and vulnerabilities get exploited. You were 22 when you were arrested. You were 27 when you were extradited. The lesson arrived on schedule. At 19, your father gives you a corridor to manage. Not because you earned it, because you carry the name. You understand the difference, and it eats at you in a specific way. Not quite shame, more like the discomfort of wearing a jacket that doesn't fit. You didn't build this. You were handed it. And everything handed to you can be taken back. You manage the corridor anyway. Michoacan to Jalisco. Oh, pharmaceutical precursors moving north while product comes south. 16 people report to you, 11 of whom are older than you, 3 of whom have been in the business since before you were born. They do what you say because they have to. You can see the math in their faces. You log everything, not on paper, in your head. Names, amounts, dates, problems. You have your father's memory, which is the only thing you inherited that was actually useful. By 20, you have expanded the corridor. By 21, the DEA has your name on a file. By 22, That file becomes an indictment. The night before your arrest, you eat dinner with your mother. She makes pozole. She doesn't say anything unusual. She serves the food and refills your glass and asks you if you've been sleeping. You tell her yes. You are lying. But you haven't slept more than 3 hours in a row for 4 months. Your eyes look older than your face. She looks at you across the table with the expression she's worn your entire life, the one that knows everything and can change nothing. And you both pretend it's a normal dinner. It is the last dinner you eat in Mexico. Federal prison in the United States is the most efficiently organized place you have ever been. There is a schedule. There are rules. There is a system of privileges and punishments that operates with the calm reliability of a payroll department. Everything is documented. Everything is processed. Everything has a form. You find this darkly funny in a way that is hard to explain to anyone who hasn't spent their youth inside an organization that also ran on documentation, processing, and forms, just with different consequences for non-compliance. The cartel, at its operational peak, ran quarterly reviews. There were spreadsheets. There were performance metrics. There were regional managers and supply chain logistics and human resources problems. Once in a meeting in Guadalajara, you watched a man present a PowerPoint slide about route optimization in the Pacific Corridor. He used a laser pointer. The federal prison where you are currently being held also uses PowerPoint in orientation sessions. The only difference is the font. There is a boy in the facility. He is 19, Mexican. His last name is not important. He made one bad decision at 17 and arrived here with a 5-year sentence and the specific expression of someone who still believes that the circumstances of their life are temporary. He asks you, spend one afternoon in the yard, if you are who he thinks you are. You tell him it depends on who he thinks you are. He says the name, your father's name, not yours, the way everyone says it, like a weather event, like a natural phenomenon that simply exists and cannot be argued with. You look at him for a long time. He is exactly the age you were when you started running information for your father. White shirt, one shoelace tied tighter than the other. A face that has not yet learned to be careful. You tell him to write to his mother. He looks confused. He says he's fine. You tell him, write to your mother, not because something is wrong. Write to her because she is sitting somewhere right now wondering if you are sleeping, and you should tell her that you are. He nods slowly and goes back inside. You stand in the yard for a while longer. You think about your mother's pozole. You think about the fact that you do not know when you will be in the same room as her again. You think about the notebook you kept for 2 years, the names you wrote down, the 34 entries. Somewhere in Mexico, your father is still alive at this moment. He is hiding somewhere in Jalisco. He is surviving the way he always survived, through intelligence, paranoia, and the precise management of who knows what about where he is. You are his son, and you don't know where he is. That is the most honest summary of your relationship. February 22nd, 2026. 6:47 a.m. The paper on the floor. You read it 3 times, and then you sit on the edge of your bed, and you do not move for a long time. The raid was in Tapalpa, mountain town in Jalisco. Your father had been there before. You knew the region. A good cover, high elevation, hard to approach without being seen. Someone told them where to look. Someone in the inner circle gave up a location, a timing, a routine. Someone who ate at the same tables and used the same phones and understood, in the cold actuarial logic of this business, that the organization's survival was worth more than the man at its top. Rule 2, everyone talks. The question is when. He died in a helicopter, shot during the raid, airlifted toward Mexico City, lost consciousness somewhere over Jalisco, which is the state he built and the state that ultimately closed around him like a hand. The cartel's response is immediate. You read about it in subsequent printouts. 252 violent incidents across 20 states. 25 National Guard soldiers killed. The vehicles burning on highways from Jalisco to Tamaulipas. A text message sent to residents of multiple cities. Stay inside. We don't care if you are innocent. The machine keeps running. The machine does not grieve. You already knew this. You wrote it down in the notebook. You just didn't expect to feel it this specifically. 3 days later, you read that the body was returned to the family. You are the family. You are not there. There is no escape. That is the part the movies always get wrong. In the movies, there is a moment, a chase, a border crossing, a narrow survival, where the main character moves through the world at speed while processing everything emotionally, the past and the present colliding in real time. And at the end, they are somewhere new, breathing hard, alive. Your climax was a courtroom in 2015. Your escape attempt was a failed one. Your border crossing was involuntary and went the wrong direction. You are in a room in the United States. You will be in this room or rooms like it for years. Outside, in Mexico, your father's cartel is reorganizing around a new center of gravity. Not you. Your half-brother. Your stepbrother. The succession passed around you like a river around a stone. You are the stone. The empire your father built did not need an heir, it needed a continuation. And continuations don't wait. So you sit, you think, you count things, ceiling tiles, the seconds between rounds on the PA system, the names you memorized from the news printouts, the number of days since you last heard your mother's voice. In a federal facility in the United States, in early March 2026, you hold nothing. No notebook, no red bicycle. And no puzzle gone cold on a table set for two. Just the piece of paper with the headline, which you have read so many times the fold lines are wearing through. And here is the realization that arrives with no drama whatsoever, the way the worst realizations always arrive. Quietly, while you're sitting still with nothing else to do.
Disappointed.
Your father died a fugitive in a helicopter, shot by an army that was told where to find him by intelligence, that was shared by a government that spent 15 years and $15 million trying to locate him. And you did not get to say goodbye. Not because you were busy, not because the distance was too great, because the machine your father built did not include a mechanism for that. The machine included routes and corridors and quarterly reviews and PowerPoint slides about route optimization. It included rules about loyalty and discretion and never being memorable. It did not include a mechanism for a son to hold his father's hand while he died. He built an empire. The empire is still running without him. It is currently reorganizing, renegotiating, and recalibrating its supply chains. The empire doesn't know his name is gone. The empire doesn't care. You were not the heir to a kingdom. You were the proof that a kingdom doesn't actually need an heir. It just needs the next component, and the next component is already at work. Step back for a moment. Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, El Menchito, is in U.S. federal custody. He was arrested in Mexico in 2015 and extradited to the United States in 2020 on drug trafficking and conspiracy charges. His father, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, died on February 22, 2026. Shot during a joint Mexican military and U.S. intelligence operation in Tapalpa, Jalisco. He died in a helicopter. He was 59 years old. El Menchito was not there. The succession of CJNG, one of the wealthiest and most violent criminal organizations in the world, passed to his stepbrother, not to him. Because you cannot run an empire from a federal cell. Because the organization does not wait. The scenes in this script are fiction. The dates are real. The death is real. The son, sitting in a U.S. facility, finding out his father is dead from a news printout, is real. Somewhere tonight, there is a 19-year-old in Jalisco being handed his first real assignment. He has his father's last name and a corridor to manage, and the specific discomfort of wearing a jacket that doesn't fit. He has not been told yet what the jacket costs. If any part of this landed for you, the helicopter ceiling, the breakfast, the pozole, the paper on the floor, drop it in the comments. Tell me which moment stayed with you. Subscribe. New video every week. We don't do glamour here. We do the version that's actually true.